Hey guys and gals, welcome back to the channel. So this is a review that I've been planning to do with you guys for quite a while, and I've just been really busy, and you know, with Bernard Watch sharing some of their watches with me, I've been a little distracted too. But as you guys know, if you've been following me on my channel, I did pick up a Panerai recently, Panerai Radiomir or Radiomir, however you want to pronounce it, PAM 287, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the thing. It's actually kind of hilarious. I mean, I've had it now I think about a month, and I've basically never let it stop running. I've been wearing it constantly, non-stop, which was a total shock to me. In fact, I'm not wearing it right now only because I feel guilty about the fact that I just need to let it rest because I'm just constantly wearing the thing. Customary wristwatch check, wearing my 16710 GMT Master 2, and yeah, I mean, I'm in love with it. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and jump right into the review, and let's show you why I'm so in love with this watch. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started. So here we have a PAM 287, and this model series I ran from about 2007 or so to about 2011, so it is currently out of production, and it comes equipped, of course, here in the traditional Radiomir or Radiomir case. There's the Radiomir case, and then there's the Radiomir or Radiomir 1940 case, and the way you guys can tell the difference is actually the lugs. This is the standard Radiomir case with the thin lugs, which I love. The 1940 case has a little bit thicker lugs, so just something for those of you guys that are trying to tell the difference out there. Now, a little bit of history about Panerai. Op3 Panerai was founded in 1860 in Firenze, or Florence, by Giovanni Panerai, and he had a little shop in Florence, and he also used to do some watchmaking lessons as well, if I recall. But Panerai was really known for a long time for supplying watches to the Italian Navy. And in this particular case, you'll see that this is a Radiomir black seal, although the BL is kind of covered up at the moment. And this black seal refers to the fact that these were typically used by frogmen in the Italian military or Italian Navy that actually wore all black. These watches back then, and to this day at least, are good to about 100 meters, but of course this one coming equipped on an alligator strap is not necessarily the way you want to go diving with it. But they were very famous for many, many years as being a watch of Italian Navy men. So they were never, you know, the luxury watches back then. They were actually, you know, rugged utilitarian watches that were used by professionals in the Navy. And these were pretty special guys. Again, these were the Italian frogmen. Pretty cool history about them, more than I can get into on this video, but if you guys have any interest in naval history, I would definitely take a look into their background. But again, Giovanni Panerai founded this company in 1860. They have a lot of great history. And even this particular model, you can tell that this model has quite a bit of history. The Radiomir, which also was the name of the luminescence material they used back then, Radiomir and also Luminor are different types of luminescent material that Panerai came out with. The Radiomir case style you're looking at here came out in the 1930s. So you very much kind of get that kind of transitional Art Deco look to it. And especially with these wired lugs, you definitely get a nice vintage aesthetic to it, which I absolutely love. This watch very much feels timeless and classic to me. And I think one of the things too that's really cool is this large oversized case, which in this case is 45 millimeters. And Panerais have always been big watches, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably wondering, you know, back then especially, watches were not anywhere near the size that they are today. You know, why were these watches so big back then? Well, a lot of you guys in the know that actually Panerai cases used to be manufactured by Rolex, and a lot of them were, you know, basically repurposed pocket watch cases. So this very much, for those of you guys that like pocket watches, has a very similar look to some vintage pocket watches. It almost kind of looks like a case of an Art Deco pocket watch. And that very much is, you know, not just a coincidence. I mean, that very much ties into the history of Panerai. You know, Panerai and Rolex had a relationship for many, many years where Rolex was supplying the cases for Panerai. This, of course, is, you know, much more recent, and this case was not made by Rolex. But there was a pretty interesting relationship with Panerai and Rolex for many, many years. Again, for the sake of brevity, I won't get into it here, but more cool history I would definitely recommend for those of you interested that you guys check out. But again, the Radiomir came out in the 1930s or so, very similar to this style, and eventually the Luminor came out with that special lock over here on the crown in the 1940s. And so one of the things about Panerai, which is very cool, just the same I'd say with Rolex, it's very cool, is they've been very traditional to their origins and their styles. So this watch, you know, very much traces its roots back to the 1930s, and you very much have that sense of history with it. Now, there's two kinds of dials of Panerai that I know a lot of you Panerai aficionados are familiar with. There's what they call the sausage dials, which I have here, and there's what they call the sandwich. So sausage dials, the luminescence, which you can see here, is actually laid over on top of the dial. The other option they have out there are called sandwich, in which case the dial actually has etchings through it, and underneath it is actually where the luminescence material is kept. I actually prefer the sandwich dials, which this one is not. However, I love this watch so much that about the only feature I wish it was different was it was a sandwich dial, although the sausage looks very nice as well. But for those of you guys that are curious, again, sandwich dials, the luminescence is under the dial and there's holes through the dial to allow it to seep through. Whereas a sausage dial, they literally, lay it over on the dial. So I mean, there's definitely it raises over the dial surface, and you can kind of see it as it kind of comes over the top of the dial. So this is a more modern Panerai. This one, in my particular example, is from 2010, and this features what Panerai calls the Op3 Caliber. Now, this is a caliber that I bet a lot of you guys watching this are probably wearing on your wrist right now and are just not aware of it. Op3 is Panerai speak for a modified Valjoux 7750. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be thinking, well, hi, I thought a Valjoux 7750 is a chronograph movement. And you'd be absolutely correct. Those of you wearing 7750s right now, the one thing you will recognize though is you have a seconds complication over here at 9. So what Panerai does is they take the 7750 and they remove all of the chronograph modules, and they just reduce it to a blank movement in terms of just a standard timekeeping movement, with the only complication being the state you see over here at 3 o'clock. And so the movement, obviously the Valjoux is a very tried and true reliable movement, and those of you that own Valjoux 7750s, if I can do it here, I guess not. This watch, of course, has the intrinsic rotor wobble you would get with a 7750. And since there's actually so much less going on with this movement, it's very pronounced in this watch. You very much hear and feel the rotor on this movement going around. 21 joules, about a 42-hour power reserve. And it does keep COSC certified specification time, so it is pretty accurate and very easy to service. Panerai does some milder things to it, and if you look online at Google Images, you can see as well that they do some nice decoration on the rotor and the base plate where it does have like the Panerai motif repeated. But very basic movement, and as you guys would expect, it does all the things a typical Valjoux would do. So it is a dive watch, so you unscrew this kind of onion style crown here, not quite. Crown feels fantastic. Let me see if I can get this to focus. There's a great threading on here. It feels very precise, and it does turn with precision. So first position is winding. Second position, you can change the date. Works pretty well. And third position, pop it out. There we go. Hacking. So all the typical features you would expect. Again, not the most impressive movement in the world, but definitely a tried and true workhorse, and it works well. Panerai has definitely done a lot more in-house movements as of late. The P series, like the P9000 series in particular. So I actually intentionally picked up one with a Valjoux OP-based movement, only because in my mind it's going to be a far easier companion to live with in terms of getting it serviced and regulated going forward. Where the Panerai movements, at least at this point, I'm assuming can only be serviced by Panerai or very limited others. So I wanted something a little bit older just because I knew it'd be that much easier to service. Now, one thing that's really cool about this dial that a lot of people don't realize is that this Cyclops here that's magnifying the date, that's showing the 18th here, is actually underneath the dial. Which, for those of you that are familiar with Rolex, and I'm wearing one of mine right now, the Cyclops on a Rolex, as you can see, is actually raised over the dial. So, a lot of people don't like that, and Panerai has actually done kind of a novel solution of hanging that Cyclops underneath the crystal so that the entire dial is actually, or the sapphire crystal, excuse me, is perfectly smooth. In Rolexes, you end up getting like grit and stuff that'll kind of go around the Cyclops, and you'll see fingerprints, and it's kind of a mess. Where Panerai, I think, has been very clever in their incorporation of a Cyclops underneath the dial. So you still get, or underneath the sapphire, so you still get that magnification for good legibility, but it's not going to collect dirt and fingerprints around it, and it leads to, I think, a much more cleaner aesthetic. I will say, though, from certain angles, it definitely kind of blurs it out a little bit. You kind of have to get it right on like this to read it. So I would say legibility compared to the Rolex is a little bit lower. But just again on the dial, so Radiomir, Black Seal, again, Black Seal referring to the Frogman in the Italian Navy. Panerai, and this one automatic referring to the Op3 Caliber. Like the Valjoux, it has the automatic winding, and as I was just saying, you very much feel that rotor when this watch is on the wrist. And this is sapphire crystal as well. The case is beautiful in my mind. Of course, I'm biased. Has kind of a mix on a cushion case. There's a lot of these just kind of really cool vintage looking angles that I absolutely just adore. And the crown too, with the beautiful Officine Panerai logo. It's just so well done. The finishing on the case is, honestly, it's superb. And it comes equipped on my case on this vintage alligator strap, which, for a dive watch seems kind of like an odd choice, but it is a beautiful strap, and it definitely is very nice. Now, when I bought this is the original strap. I actually took some of that watch balm, which I'll put a link to below in the description, that a friend of mine sent, and I cleaned it up a little bit and actually brought back some of the luster to this, and now it smells like beeswax, which is very nice as well. But very nice strap. But as a dive watch, if you guys ever plan on taking this in the water, and again, it's good for 100 meters, this is not the strap you're going to want equipped on this watch to go jump in the water. Now, speaking of straps, and a lot of those of you that are into Panerai know that they're really big on changing straps. And a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, how do you get this thing off of here? There's two screws. I don't know if we'll get on. There's one here, and there's one here. And you take those screws out, and these bars will pop out, and there's actually three pieces here to this lug. There's a piece here, and a piece in the middle. You can take this off, and you can put on different straps. So if you're gonna go diving on with your Panerai, swap this out for a rubber strap, and Panerai makes all sorts of nice rubber straps. Don't go diving in this strap, you'll destroy it. But the strap is beautiful. It's also very expensive, so I'm going to be very delicate with it. And my example comes equipped on this beautiful Panerai buckle, which is a trigger here and a trigger here. You just squeeze it, and there you can see Officine Panerai. And it mentions here that it's Swiss made, and I forget what's on this side. Stainless steel. So it's a nice system. There's actually no springs in it. These bars slide in and out based on tension, so they just free float. And then when you snap it into place, they actually push these bars back out. And then this just slides in through here. Yep. Oh, like that. And it clicks into place, and it's basically purely a pressure fit. And of course, this buckle can be adjusted to lengthen or shorten the strap. Now, I would show you guys the case back, except Panerai does something which I'm not a huge fan of, which is that they stamp both the serial number and the series number on the back of the case back. So if you want to see the case back, I'd recommend you just search for it. It basically just says Officine Panerai, and then it lists the model and the serial information, which again, I don't want to give out to people on the internet. So I'm not going to show you the case back. I hope you guys can understand why that is. But if you were to see the case back on my watch, you'd see it's an M series. And this particular model, they made 800 in that year of the 287. So I have a number of the 800 that were made that year. And then of course I have the serial number of my watch, and you can see I'm getting fingerprints on the dial right now. So I have to say this watch has been an absolute surprise to me. I'm going to clean this off. So I have to say this watch has been an absolute surprise to me. As I mentioned on the Why I've Hated Panerai video, I could never justify buying one of these, and for many years I absolutely hated them. But I have to say this, I can't believe I'm saying this, actually is probably my favorite watch I've owned. And I've had it about a month now, and I've probably said this a million times again, it hasn't really left my wrist. And I'm not even wearing it today. I'm wearing my Rolex only because I feel guilty about leaving this thing run nonstop because I feel like it needs a break. But this is definitely a case of I'm just very emotionally connected to this watch. As a value-based watch worth, this watch when it was new retailed for just under $7,000 is a value-based mechanical watch worth a $7,000 price tag. Honestly, that's a very hard thing to justify. It's got obviously beautiful finishing on it. It's got a lovely strap on it, and it's a fantastic watch, but the price point does seem ridiculous. But I have to say, I am so thrilled that I bought this, and while I can't justify logically what I paid for it and what Panerais go for, as an emotional decision, I could not be happier with this watch. And like I said, it hasn't left my wrist. This is my favorite watch I think I currently own right now, which is something I never thought I would say, but I am just absolutely in love with it. And I would definitely recommend one if this is something that speaks to you. There's just something, I don't know, I find very special about it. And I'll go ahead and show it to you guys on the wrist. I mean, these are big watches. This one is 45 millimeters, which is basically the standard size. And they're pretty chunky, but they wear really comfortably. Let me go ahead and show it to you on my 7-inch wrist. Lots of birds as I'm filming outside today. You can see it's got, it's almost like I've strapped a pocket watch to my wrist. It's got a very interesting kind of look to it, but I don't know. There's something special about wearing it. It just works for me, and I get why a lot of people would absolutely hate it, but for me, there's just something about it that works for me. So yeah, guys, this is the Panerai PAM 287, and I'm in love with it. So hope you guys enjoyed the review. With all that said, let's just go ahead and we'll jump back. Hey guys, welcome back. I really hope that you enjoyed that review. This is one of those watches that was just kind of really surprised me. As I've mentioned on previous videos, I've kind of not really been into Panerai for a very long time, and I went through several years where I really kind of was disgusted by them. And for a watch of the basic ETA movement, this is something that I just would have just talked trash about a couple of years ago. And there's still, I do think that they are overpriced for the money, if I'm totally honest. But this watch has that X factor for me, and it's more than the sum of its parts. And while I can't really justify the price based on what it's made out of, the way the watch makes me feel more than makes up for what I paid for it. And that's one of those things about being into watches. Sometimes they just feel special to you and you bond with them. And this is a watch that, what guys, I've just bonded with, and I really couldn't be more surprised if I tried to be. But hey, as always guys, thank you so much. Let me know what you guys think below. I may not get a chance to respond to your comments, but do know that I appreciate them, and thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please subscribe somewhere around me so that we can stay tuned and you guys can catch me in the next video. Hope you guys are having an awesome day, and I'll see you all real soon.